Now, why is it the Republican Party want to prohibit people from getting access to the polls?
How's that?
Why? Well, we don't have same-day registration in Texas, but yet now they want to have the burden of forcing everyone to have a government-issued ID to be able to vote.
Well, okay, but that's not a special card that's voting. You can use your driver's license, you can use your CHL, you can use any state-issued license, that's true. But also, if someone doesn't have, they can't afford any ID, you can go to the DPS and they'll get it to you for free. I mean, they're giving you every opportunity.
Well,
when I go write a check, or I have to show my ID. When I return something to a store, I have to show my ID. I think voting is more important than.
well, it shows how
I don't know why.
But it shows how out of touch Republicans are to this issue. Now,
How is that out of touch?
You're so out of touch because you don't understand how many people in the United States today do not have a government-issued ID.
Okay, voter ID doesn't matter. It's in Texas. Remember, we're talking local.
Well,
We're
okay.
we're local.
Well,
Okay, just like read my lips. That's not local, but this is.
well, here in Texas, what the Department of Justice is trying to do is to require Texas to tell the national level how many Texans will be deprived of voting with this law. That's why it hasn't been enacted yet. That's why it's not yet law.
Okay.
Because they don't want to release those numbers. They don't really,
It's not yet law because Democrats sued. That's why it's not law.
well, thank goodness,
Okay,
because
it was passed, and that's what I love about Democrats. If you don't get your way and something passes that you don't like, I'm just going to go sue. What's the point of having the legislature? It's kind of-
well, that's why we have a constitution, because we don't have the majority to be able to just run rampant over the rights of the minorities. That's why we have a legislature. That's why we have a judicial system. That's why we have America, is because we have access to the courts to say, look, the people in power are screwing us, so we need to have a place to fight rather than have a revolution.
I hardly think the people in power are screwing the minorities by saying, hey, you know what, if you want to vote, you need to show an ID. What's the problem with that? A voter ID, how are you keeping people from voting?
Because of the number of people that do not have a government-issued ID.
Okay, but you can get it for free. If you can't afford it, you can go and get one. What's wrong with going and getting one?
Because you have to have all the paperwork to prove up your citizenship.
Well, what's wrong with proving your citizenship to vote?
Because there's so many people who don't have those papers immediately available, especially people in my precinct that live in nursing homes. People who live in nursing homes, they don't have a government-issued ID.
You're right, but they're for free. They can go and get one from the DPS. People in nursing homes, they don't have a social security card. They don't have a birth certificate.
Right.
You can get one
Absolutely.
online. Then as a precinct chair, you should probably go and help them get the proper documents.
Well,
that's what I would do.
Well, if we go
It's
and say
not
we have to have these documents, then why don't we have same-day registration? So why don't we open up the electoral process the way it should be instead of just
I
having
don't know why we
people-
have that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that don't have the proper ID. And that you say that if they don't have the paperwork to get it.
I think we can come back on this issue in another show, because I think it's a great topic to cover, but we could probably spend the entire hour talking about it. But let's look at the elections. I mean, you're getting a team together, and obviously you support all the candidates until you get the nominee. But once you get those nominees, what's going to be different in 2012 that maybe went wrong in 2010? What is the Democratic Party led under your administration going to do? I mean, how do we get those voters that we've lost? Art and Kara on the show several times have said that there's a larger majority of Hispanic voters that are voting in elections and voting for Republicans as compared to 2 years past. So, one, how do we get the Hispanic voters back? How do we get the disfranchised back into the Democratic Party? Because let's face it, our numbers have failed. I mean, Barack Obama won the presidency in 2008, yet John McCain won the county, which we thought was just an anomaly because we had George Bush winning and he was our governor. But then John McCain, who didn't even win the White House, still was able to win Nueces County. So what is the plan? How are we going to make this change to get the people back that were once voting in our party or supporting our candidates to come back and say, yes, I will support the slate of candidates that we have before us?
Once again, what we're going to have to do is work at the precinct level as well as the block captain level to get people, get the vote out, to get our vote out. We know that Republicans have their people and whatnot, their lunatic fringe that's going to vote for them regardless. We're not going to try to convert them. Let them do their own thing. What we're going to do is work with the working families in Texas to stress pocketbook issues, how your child is going to have a better life under Democratic leadership rather than under the Republican leadership. Look at the amount of money it costs to go to college in Texas now as to what it was when Rick Perry first came in as the governor. Look at the amount of dollars that you have to go into debt to get a bachelor's in Texas now.
So, once again, I know we could go a bunch, but for the next several months, you're going to be supporting the primary, and then in May, I guess this is the transition. When hopefully we get the full term, or whoever gets a full term. It's so difficult, in my opinion, though, just watching politics all these years, to see you have somebody leading up to the primary, and it happens for the Republicans as well, I'm sure. But then you have that change. You could potentially have somebody new. How are you going to make sure that we have a seamless transition, or how do you make sure that that our message continues throughout 2012, that we don't have any hiccups or bumps or changes in it, that we still are reaching our ultimate goal? Because I like what you say. I know the work you've done. I've seen you at Democratic Party executive committee meetings all the time. See a lot of baseball games as well. But and so I've seen you. You've been active. You've been there, and you've just been a stalwart of the party. But for me as a Democrat, I'm frustrated at the losses. In 2010, I don't know what we could have done differently with it, because it was nationwide and it hit us here locally. But I want to hear what are we going to do? What are you going to make sure? Fundraising is always difficult for our party. The Republican Party, they have deeper pockets many times. So what are we going to do to support our candidates? Because before we've had grassroots, we've had voter outreach, people that go and volunteer and help out. That's, I think, slowing down right now. So how do we get them back? I know there's been a lot of committees that were set up by Rose Mesa Harrison that I'm sure that will continue within the party, but they're trying to